about my interview experiences, so basically I've interviewed with almost all the big tech giants like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Morgan Stanley, D Shop, Uber, Flipkart, some of the startups and the HFT firms as well. So what I've tried to do here is, I try to from my interview experiences, I try to came up with the common tips and tactics which you can use in the interviews to crack the interviews for such big companies. Okay. To start with, what was common in all the interviews. So basically, most of the companies prefer to have 3 to 4 tech rounds, and each round lasts for around 45 minutes to 1 hour. Right? And if you're not interviewing for very senior position, then you'll get a couple of questions on data structures and algorithm. And the expectation in each of the interview would be to at least implement the function or the mean logic for one of the questions which has been discussed the part of the interview. So I would like to share some of the tips which I have gathered after giving the interviews with all these big companies. So before you jump onto the solution directly, what you should try to do is that you should try to ask the right set of questions and make sure that the question is very clear to you. Right? You should not leave any point or any part which is not clear, because that might take up your time at a later point of time once you start solving the problem. So yeah, as I mentioned, you should make sure that you understand the question very correctly, and you should ask as many as questions you can. Uh, Once you understand the question properly, right, what you should do is you should try to write a couple of test cases around it and ask the expected output from the interviewer, or tell the expected output to the interviewer. What it will ensure is that in case if you have missed any data point or data set during like during when you are understanding the question, then in that case that will get clarified with the help of the test case which you have written around the question, and then you might discuss with the interviewer by exactly uh, the output of this particular test case is this or that. Right? Once you come up with a test case and you are satisfied, and your interviewer is also satisfied that you understood the question very correctly, what you should do is you should try to ask constraints to get a fair idea of the complexity from the interviewer is looking for. See, I'll try to explain you why exactly constraints are important. So generally, the expectation is that you should be able to, write the solution in such a way that if you try to execute the solution, generally for data structure and algorithm, then the execution time should be less than 1 second. Right? Now there are operations. Now X, so there are approximately 10 to the power 8 operations you can perform within 1 second in Java, C++, or in most other languages. Right? It might vary a bit more here and there based on languages, but it is generally between 10 to the power 7 to 10 to the power 8 number of operations within a second. Now, if you know that the complexity, if n is equal to 1000, correct? Now, if n is equal to 1000, then you know that, okay, because I can execute 10 to the power 8 operations within a second, my complexity can be n square, because 10 to the power 6 is possible within a second, and 10 to the power n square log n is also possible, right? But if I go to n cube, which is equal to 10 to the power 9, that won't be able to, my solution won't be able to get executed within a second, right? So in such cases, right, with the help of the constraints, you will be able to figure out. What I mean by constraint is that, okay, if there is some n value given to you, then what is the range of n, whether it stems from varies from 0 to 1000 or 10,000 or 5,000, and there can be many other constraints as well similarly. So with the help of those, you can get a fair idea of the complexity. See, some most of the times the interviewer won't tell you the exact constraints, because you will be able to come up with a complexity, but it's worth giving a try. In case if you get a complexity for them, then you can start thinking in that direction, because if there is some login complexity involved, it could be uh, it is possible that the question can be solved with the help of binary search tree, or a binary tree, or maybe a binary search algorithm, right? So because you have login complexity involved. I'm not saying that that would be the case always, but that will give you some kind of help or tips, so to approach a particular problem. Now, what you should do is, after that, you should take your time and try to think of the solution. Correct? Maybe take 3 or 4 minutes. 5 minutes to think about the solution, do some brainstorming on the question given to you, and then you should start thinking out loud whatever you're thinking about. Why it is important is because in case if you're going in the wrong direction, the interviewer can actually, uh, uh, I'll give you some hints, some small hints, so that you don't approach in the same direction and you don't waste your time in it. Instead, you take a separate path. So, interviewer might give you some small hints in those cases, and then you can start thinking in that direction. Thinking out loud is very important for other reason as well, because in case if you have time constraint, right? If you took a lot of time to think about the solution, but you end up coming up with a solution, but if you're not thinking out loud, it might not be possible for you to explain everything to the interviewer within last 5 minutes. Right? If you tell them that how you're approaching a problem, it would become easier for the interviewer to understand what exactly you're trying to do, and what exactly what exactly you're trying to do. And I mean, in case if you're making some small mistakes, they can actually hint you and try tell you that, okay, if you will do this, then think in that particular direction or think in this direction, and then see what can be a potential solution if you take this particular. So yeah, I mean, if you think out loud, it becomes easier for the interviewer and to understand what exactly you're trying to do. The next important thing is, because you're thinking out loud, there will be always a communication between your interviewer and you. It it won't. I mean, in a complete interview, you won't feel like there is a void, right? And you should try to fill that void by thinking out loud, by talking about your solution. Uh, the next important thing is that once you actually come up with the correct solution, make sure that you explain the solution to your interviewer properly. Why it is important is because, let's say if you don't explain your solution properly and you start writing code, and the interviewer think that, okay, you're thinking in the right direction, let's write the code. And once you've written the code, then you figured out that they figured out that there is some mistake in your thinking, correct, and the way you are approaching the problem. Now again, they would ask you to think again and try to come up with a correct solution. Now, because you have wasted those 10-15 minutes in writing the code, you won't get that 10-15 minutes, and there will be a shortage of time, and you might not be able to attend the second question which interviewer might be expecting, or you might not be able to complete the previous question itself because you ended up writing the wrong code in the interview. This I would say that this is very important part. The next point which I've mentioned in the doc, because thinking of a solution is one part, and writing the code properly with proper names, writing concise code with proper indentation is again most of this companies look forward to. It's important because I would tell you why exactly it is important, because if you write a simple code, clean code, if you use a proper variable names and indentation, they prefer the candidates like that, because in the company you have to write the code like that. Why you have to write the code like that is because if you write that a particular code, that code will be written only once, but that might be read by thousands of people or hundreds of people, right? Because people will keep on changing, and they might use, because you're working in some major system, and so many people will go through that code. Now think about the timing, right? If you take 30 minutes to write I won't say a bad code, but not well structured code. And if you take 50 minutes to write a concise, simplified, indented code with proper variable names, then the total time assume that this is 50 minutes, you are taking 30 minutes to write an unstructured code, and then it will take another 10 minutes for every person who is going through your code to understand the code. So total time on an industry level, how much time you're spending? So 30 minutes plus, let's say 100 people is spending 10 minutes. So that comes out to be what? 1,000 minutes plus 30 minutes, 1,030 minutes. But think from a different perspective, where you're writing the code, you're taking, let's say, 1 hour as well to write the code, but the person who are reading, or the people who are reading your code, are understanding your code within 5 minutes. Right? So the total time there you will take, total time of the company spent is what? 100 into 5, which is 500 minutes plus 60 minutes. So if you see, the cognitive overload is much more if you write a bad code. Right? So you should always try to write a concise code in the interview as well, because your interviewer might be looking forward to it. If they might be giving you points on the basis of the way you are writing, you are writing your variable names, the way you are indenting your code, the the the, the simplified code you are writing. And to share my personal experience, I was interviewing with Uber, and uh, what happened was that they gave me a question, and I mean, instead of you know writing a simple for loop, I was writing 7 or 8 if-else condition, and my interviewer told me that this code doesn't look good to me at all. You should have written the concise code. So it's my personal experience that if you don't write a concise code, right, interviewer doesn't feel good, and they feel that okay. Uh, uh, I mean, you are not good at writing the code, and you might not get a good review points from that particular interview. So it's always recommended to write a concise code and well indented code and simple code. Okay. The next thing is that your solution is incomplete as long as you haven't mentioned the complexity of everything. Right? Why it is important is because most of the big firms actually are working on a large scale, right? They want to make sure that your the, the latency of your code or the latency of your system is less, right? What are the different factors which actually contribute to the latency? So yes, there are network, there are servers, there is network communication, depends on the location of your databases, your servers, your users. There are various parameters and factors. But the other very important factor is that how much time your code is taking to get executed. Right? If it is taking n time or n square time, right? So they focus on these things as well. And if you don't know how to calculate a complexity of your problem, you might end up writing a bad code in the company. So they always expect you to come up with the correct complexity of the problem because your code is incomplete if you don't know the complexity of your. So before I actually move on to the next part, uh, I would like to take questions from you people. So do you have any questions? I'm happy to answer if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next part where we will try to solve a bunch of questions and try to see how we can put the tips and tactics we have learned right now uh, and implement those in the implement the same in the questions during the interview. So yes, are there any questions? I'll wait for like 30 seconds or 1 minute, and if you have any questions, then just put on your question on the chat, or you can unmute yourself if there is no background noise. Okay, so looks like there are no questions. So shall we move on to the next part? Cool. So let's move on to the next part where we'll be talking about we'll take one question and try to see how to think for a solution for this particular problem. So generally, as I mentioned, right, there are a couple of questions given to you in each of the interview for data structures and algorithm. So the first question would be, will fall into the category of easy to medium question, where interviewer will try to check your thinking ability, whether you're able to think about the solution or not. Generally, they might not ask you to write the code for this one if they know that this might take a lot of time for you to write the code, and they once you solve this code, they might jump onto the second question. Now again, this depends on interviewer to interview. So this strategy is not, I mean, the, the strategy to, the strategy to ask question might vary from person to person, but in general, or from my prior experience, what I've seen is like most of the interviews, the first question is comparatively easier than the second question, and uh, the expectation is that you'll be able to come up with the code as well as the solution within 15 to 20 minutes for this particular question. Okay, so let's take the question, right? Let's take the question and try to see how you will approach this problem. There is one more thing I've seen that like most of the people or most of the interviewees have uh, question about how to approach a problem, and if you know the solution, should you actually talk about the brute force solution, or should you directly jump onto the optimal solution? See, as long as you don't, I mean, even if you know the solution, but if you know that how you're approaching the solution, you know that why your solution is giving you the correct answer, it's okay to tell the directly talk about it correct solution. But in case if you feel that it's good to actually talk about the brute force solution, and you don't need to spend a lot of time. Just talk about a brute force solution very briefly and tell interviewer that, okay, I know the optimal solution for this. I can think of an optimal solution for this as well, and then you can directly start talking about the optimal solution in that case. But as long as you know that you are very confident about your optimal solution, and you know that you haven't, I mean, you know why exactly the solution is working. As long as this is the case, it's totally fine. If you don't know how the solution is working, and if you directly tell the solution to the person, that might not give a good impression to the interview. So keep those points in mind, because what can possibly happen is if you come up with a correct solution very quickly, they might try to change question a bit and might expect you to write the solution for the same. So it depends. It depends on the interviewer as well. So it's good to always be on the safer side and try to quickly tell the brute force solution, and then try to tell the optimal solution, and make sure that you know the details of the optimal solution, because your interviewer might ask you to might ask you to uh, change some constraint and again solve the same question with by changing some parameters or some constraints. So yeah, always keep that in mind. Let's take the question. So the question is like this. There is an array given to you, and the array is of n numbers. And you can add +1 in any of the n minus 1 number in a step. You need to find out in how many steps all the numbers will have the same value. So let's say the example is 1, 2, 3. So what you need to do is you can add +1 in any of the n minus 1 numbers in one step. Right? So what I'm saying is that you take a number and you increase that particular number by 1. You take n minus 1 number. So you need to choose n minus 1 numbers. So you choose any n minus 1 number. So let's say, looking at the solution, what would you choose? Because you want to make all the numbers equal, you will choose the n minus 1 numbers which are smaller. So you will choose 1 and 2. In this case, you will increment this. In the first step, you will increment these two numbers by 1. This will look like 2, 3, 3. Now, in the next step, again, you need to choose n minus 1 number, because n is equal to 3, so you have to choose two numbers. So you decided to choose this and this number, and you incremented the value of this number by 1. So this became 3, 4, 3. Now in the next step, what you do? What you again choose one number, increment the value of n minus 1 number, increment the values of those n minus 1 number by 1, and you choose the smaller numbers, which are 3 and 3, and then you increment the value of 3 and 3 to 4, 4. So all the numbers becomes equal, and the number of steps it took to make all the numbers equal are 3. So now let's try to think about the solution for this problem. Let's start with the brute force solution. We'll try to optimize it. So I'll give you like 3 to 4 minutes to think about the solution for this problem. We can start with the brute force solution, and then we can try to optimize it. So I'll wait for 2 minutes, and then we will again discuss the solution for this problem. Yeah. Anyone who can think of a solution? So let me share my another screen. So let's try to understand the question a little bit. So what is given to us is that there are n numbers. So let's write it down. Let's write all the constraints which we have. Just a second. So what is given to us? We have got n numbers, correct? Correct. And after that, what is given to us? That you have to increment n minus 1 numbers in by +1 in every step. And what is the aim? Aim is to find the number of steps in which all the numbers will be same. Correct? Now let's take the same example which we had. So we had the number given to us at 2, 1, and 3. So these are the numbers given to us. Correct? So what kind of questions you can ask? You can ask them that the array is not sorted. So because, I mean, if 1, 2, 3 is given to you, right, as an example, you can just make sure that, okay, the array is not sorted. Only the integer values are there. There are no doubles because you can't deal with doubles, right? So anyways, it doesn't make sense to ask that question. But in case if there is some question where, you know, it's not very clear that all the values will be integers or not, then in that case, you can ask that question as well. You can check if the numbers can be negative or the numbers given to you will always be positive. So now interviewer might tell you that there can be negative numbers as well in this case. So you should consider all those points when you are actually, you know, approaching the solution for this. Now, when you actually think about the solution for this particular problem, what comes into your mind is that I should always choose two numbers which are smaller and try to increment the value of those numbers. So in the first step, what I do is I take these two number and increment the value by 1. This becomes 3 to 3. In the second step, again I'll choose the two numbers which are smaller. Let's say I can take these two numbers because these are same, so I can take any. I have to choose n minus 1 numbers for sure, right? So I'll take this and increment them by 1. And in the third step, what I'll do, I'll again choose the two numbers which are smaller and then increment the value of them. So this becomes less. So the number of steps are 3 steps. Now, if I talk about a brute force solution, brute force solution seems to be quite simple, right? Just a second. Yeah. So what would be the brute force solution? What we are doing is we first need to, in every step, we need to find. So what do you see here? In every step, find all the smallest numbers. So find the largest number in the array. Correct. The second step would be what? Increment values of all the numbers except the largest number by +1. Number by 1. And third step, check if all the numbers are equal or not. Check if all the numbers are equal or not. And if they are not equal, then what do you need to do? Repeat the above steps. Repeat the above steps and increment the counter for number of steps. Okay. Is that clear to everyone? We'll try to write the code for the same, but is there any confusion in the brute force solution? Now, what exactly will be the complexity? We'll try to think about the complexity once we start writing the code. But if you have any confusions or questions here, then please ask. Otherwise, we'll move on to the someone is suggesting that sort it in smallest to highest and then add it in the reverse order. How will that give you the answer? So Santosh is proposing that sort the numbers and then add it from reverse order, right? So if I do this, so if I sort the numbers, the number will become 1, 2, 3. So the answer will be 3 plus 1 plus 2, which is equal to 6. But the number of steps are 3. So your solution won't work, Santosh, right?
Uh,
And
Hi Prakash, this is Santosh. Now what I'm
yeah,
saying is like 1, 2, 3, okay, and then we have 3, 2, 1. So I just need to add 1, 2, 3 and 3, 2, 1. So it will give me 4, 4, 4. So in the first step, I would be able to see 4, 4, 4 same. You got my
no,
point?
but no, but that is not a correct answer, right? How many steps it? How many steps did it take?
Only one step, right?
No, that's not correct, right? What we have to do is see the condition. That's why I told you, right? Please take a look at the question. Try to understand question correctly, and that's why I always say that what you should do is you should try to make couple of test cases around your question. So again, if you try to understand the question, there are n numbers given to you. You can choose only n minus 1 numbers in the first n minus 1 numbers, and you can increment n minus 1 number by 1 in the first step, in every step, correct? And you need to find the number of steps in which all the numbers will become same. So you are saying that you are sorting the number 1 to 3, and how are you adding 3 to 1? I didn't get this, right? This is incorrect, right? You can't do that directly.
Okay.
You're getting my point, because you need to choose n minus 1 numbers. You
Okay.
need to increment n minus 1 number by plus 1 in every step.
Okay.
I'm not sure how this step is coming, right?
Okay.
So this won't give you the correct solution. You understood my point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. The second, there was another question which was, someone suggested that someone asked the question whether the array is sorted or not. So not necessarily, and this is the right set of question which you have asked. So the array is not sorted; it is not given to you in the question. So you can ask this question from the interview. Generally, if the array would be sorted, then the interviewer will explicitly mention it in the question. But it's okay if you have any confusion in your mind, you can go ahead and ask that question. So now let's try to see how to write the solution for this particular problem. So what we are doing is we got the numbers. So first we are finding the largest number in the array. So how we'll write a solution? So let's try to see how to write a solution. Let me share my other screen. So the way to write the solution for this problem is that, so what we need to do, we need to write down the number of steps. So we'll have integer, we'll write num steps. Why num steps? Because we need to calculate the number of steps to reach from this point to this point. We have integer array given to us and int n number of values in the array. Number n is equal to number of values in the array. Okay. So what I'll write is first, the first part is while one. Why I'm writing while one, I'll tell you that. Okay. So what we need to do first, we need to find the largest number present in the array. So int, right? So what should be the first step, right? The first step should be that if all the values are already equal, then we don't need to do anything. Right? If all the values are already equal, then we don't need to do anything. Right? So what we'll write int top for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 10, I plus plus. What we'll do is we'll check if all the values are equal or not. So the way we'll check it is if ARR of I, ARR of I double equals to, we'll start from this one. So if ARR of I double equals to ARR of I minus 1, and what we'll do, we'll say we'll continue because we know that these are equal, correct? Correct? And we'll keep on doing that till the time they are not equal. So as soon as this is not true, then what we'll write? Maybe write here else, we'll write else break. You are breaking it because we are saying that if they are not equal, then break. That means that there is at least a value which is not same, correct? So what we can check here is if I double equals to n, what we are saying, if I double equals to n, that means that I have reached the end of the array. That means all the values are equal. Reached end of the array. Correct. And what we'll say, we can simply break from this while one loop which we have written. Correct. And here on the top we are getting in total steps equal to what? 0. Correct. And after everything, now if it is not equal, so if I is not equal to n, that means that at least there is a value which is not equal to all the other values. Correct. Because if all the values are same, what I am checking, error of I equal to error of I minus 1 or not. So if all the values are same, this condition will always hold true. Correct. But if that is not the case, then we'll break at some point. Now what we need to do, the next step was to find the largest element, find largest index of the largest element, correct? How we'll find it? We'll do int max value. Let's say we have taken max value equal to what? Equal to ARR of 0. We have initialized with ARR of 0, and we have taken max index equal to what? Current index is equal to 0. Now what we'll do is we'll again write a for loop for int I is equal to 0, I is equal to 1, I is less than n, I plus plus. What we'll do, we'll check if the current element, what is the largest element. Okay. So the way we'll check it is, if ARR of I is greater than what? Max value. Okay. If that is the case, then what do we need to do? We need to increment the values, right? So how will increment the values? So we'll say that max value, so we'll have to assign the value, max value equal to what? ARR of I, and we'll also update the max index. So we'll say max index equal to I. So we know that this is the index at which we have got the largest value. Once we found this, then what do we need to do? If ARR of I is less than max value, then we don't need to take any action, right? Because we need to find the largest index of the largest element. Then what do we need to do? Increment all the values except the value at largest index I plus 1. Okay. So how we'll do that? We'll again write a for loop for int I is equal to 0, I is equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus, and what we'll write here? We'll write if I is not equal to max index, then what we do? We see that ARR of I equal to error of I plus. So we have incremented now, and what we have done, because we have incremented, so we have to increment the total steps, right? So we'll do total steps plus plus. Why? Because increase the number of steps. We'll keep doing this, and then again we'll go to this while loop. While one, we'll check if all the values are equal or not. If they are not equal, then what we are doing? If they are not equal, then we'll come on to this. If they are equal, then we are breaking. That means that all the values have become equal. Then only we'll reach the end of index here, right? In this case, okay, there is one small mistake, because we are taking int. Here we are checking I equal to n, right? And here int is a local variable for this for loop. So we'll have to write int. Let's say j equal to, start from j equal to 0, j equal to 1. Int j we have declared, and let's say we are doing int j equal to 1 instead. J is less than n, j plus plus, here of J minus n. Here we'll check if J, because this int J should be declared outside this loop, right? Otherwise, it will be local to this loop, so you can't use it outside this. So now this seems fine. If we reach the end of the array, then we are okay. Now if you will see the complexity. So okay, before I jump onto the complexity, is there anyone who has confusion in the solution of this particular problem? Yes, Hemant, uh, we'll definitely take another. We'll try to solve this with the help of 351. Just give me a minute. I'll share my screen and show you the solution. Is there any min-max limit for numbers? Example 1n. There is no min-max. What do you mean by? You mean the value of the number? Then the value of the number can be up to 10 to the power. Uh, it can be integer. So it can be from minus 10 to the power 9 to plus 10 to the power, or 2 to the power plus 2 minus 2 to the power 32 to plus 2 to the power 32. Simple. Okay. So that is a better representation because int is of 4 byte. So 4 byte is equal to what? It's not 4 byte. Yeah, 4 bytes. So it's equal to 1 byte is equal to 8 bytes. So 8 into 4, which is equal to 32 bits. So 2 to the power 32 into the max value possible for a particular integer. Okay, someone asked me that if I can take an example on 351. So let's try to see the example on 351. So let's see the same thing on 351. So what happens in case of 351 is that 3, 5, and 1. So in the first step, what we'll do, we'll take the values which are smaller. So this will become what? 4, 5, and 2. This is my first step. The second step, what will happen? This will become what? 5, 5, and 3. Now I can pick any of them because yes.
Prabhakar, we can't see the screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just a second. So we have taken this example 3, 5, 1, right? So we increment n minus 1 values. So this is incremented to 4, 5, and 2. In the next step, we are again choosing the two smaller values. So 4 and 2, so it became 5, 5, and 3. And the next step, what we are doing is we are saying that again increment the values. But pick any two values. So I'm taking this 5 and this 3, let's say. So or this 5 and this 3 I can pick. So this will remain 5, 6, 4. Now in the next step, what I'll do is I'll take the smaller value. So this will become what? 6, 6, 5. The next step, what I'll do is I'll take any of the values. So let's say this time I choose this 6 and this 5. So this became what? 7, 6, 6. And in the next step, what I'm doing is I'm incrementing this and this, not this one. So this will become what? 7, 7, and 7. So the total number of steps you took were 6 steps. Is it clear now? Anyone who has doubt in the in this particular the test case run which you have done right now based on our code?
Step 5 is wrong. You are incrementing the last value 5 to 6, but the middle is still 6 to 6.
Which one is wrong?
5.
5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 3. From second step to third step, you are saying?
You are incrementing the first and third one.
So we can increment any value, right? I can take any two. I mean, I can choose any two values, right?
Right.
So I'm choosing this value and this value. This value and this value. Okay, you're saying the. Okay.
I was confused about this fourth and fifth step, so it was. It's okay. My bad.
Understood now, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, understood.
No problem, right? Okay.
I have a question in your solution. Is it necessary to every time we are looping to find the max value, right? This will, the complexity will be high, I guess.
Yes, correct. The complexity is high. So we'll talk about the complexity. So I told you, right? This is a brute force solution.
Okay.
So if you have an optimal solution, please propose it. I'll be happy to listen to your optimal solution. But we started with a brute force solution, right? So I haven't said that this is the most optimal solution, right? Know that the complexity will be high. So we'll try to calculate the complexity as well. But if you have a better solution, then let me know. We can discuss that. Okay. Yeah. So please let me know if you can think of a better solution. I'm not sure why people think that step 5 is wrong. No, step 5 is not wrong, right? Here 665 I'm taking. So I'm incrementing this 6 and this 5. I can increment anything. Now don't go on the code. On the code we have restricted it. So we are saying that always increment the value. So as per the code, we won't be incrementing this value and this value. As per the code, we'll be incrementing this and this value. So I'll change that. So the way I've written the code, that will actually end up incrementing the other values. So I think that's why people are getting confused. So I'll change that. So this will, let's say I'll increment this and this as per my code which I've written. And ultimately this will become 7, 7, and 7. So again, this number of steps remains same. Okay. Let's try to understand. Let's go back to the code again. Share my screen again. Okay. So what we are doing here is first let's try to see the number of steps. So here it will be equal to this while loop will execute for how much time? It will be executed for the number of steps, correct? Number of steps, and this for loop will be executed what? How many times? Order of n time, because these are the number of values present in the array. So n times. This for loop will also, to find the largest element, will also be executed n times. So this is also order of n, and this also will execute for order of n times. Right? One question could be that how exact? I mean, when we have the same numbers, then how are we incrementing n minus 1 numbers? So if we have two same numbers like 2, 3, 3, then what we are doing is we are actually storing the max value in the index. Correct? So we are not. That's why we are taking the index and not just the max value. So we know that which particular index I don't need to increment. So that's why I'm not incrementing that index only. We are incrementing all the other values. So even if the values will be same, correct? The max index will be only 1, right? So we'll take only, we won't increment the value at only that index. We'll increment the values at other index, even if the values, two larger values are same. So that will help. And so this will also take order of n, and this will also take order of n. And this will be equal to what? Executed for number of steps. So let's say the number of steps is equal to order of n. So the complexity of your algorithm will become what? The complexity of your algorithm will be order of n into order of m, and we can call it as what? Order of, which is equal to what? Order of n. Okay. So this is my brute force solution which we have discussed. Okay. So you come up with a brute force solution, propose your brute force solution. Your interviewer might ask you to write the code for the brute force solution. Otherwise, they might ask you to write the code for an optimal. I mean, if you can propose an optimal solution, then they will ask you to write the code for the optimal solution. Now let's go back to our let's go back to the same question again and see how we optimize it. So let's go back to our whiteboard. So let's go back to our whiteboard. So here, I hope you can see my whiteboard. So see, what we were doing was, right now we were incrementing the values. So let's say we had 3, 5, 1. Now instead, can we say that? So what we have written? We have written that increment all n minus 1 values by plus 1. So if you think in a different direction altogether, what will be a vice versa statement for this? Can I say that decrement only one value by 1? That means that whatever is the larger value, if I decrement that value by 1, then let's see what will happen. So let's say we have 3, 5, 1. Let's say we have 3, 5, 1. And what we are doing is we are finding the largest value and we are decrementing it every time. So this will become what? 3, 4. In the next step, what will happen? This will become 3, 3, 1. Now, in the next step, we can, because there are two values which are same, so we can decrement either of the values. Let's say we are decrementing. This is value, so this will become 2, 3, 1. Then this will become what? 2, 2, 1. Then what will happen after that? Again, we'll decrement this value, so this will become 1, 2, 1, and this will become what? 1, 1, and 1. So again, the number of steps, if you see from here, is this the first step, second step, third step, fourth step, fifth step, and sixth step. So there are again what? How many steps? There are again 6 steps to actually reduce this particular solution to this one. So we just change the statement which was given to us in the question, right? We can do that, right? Because ultimately the aim is to find the number of steps in which all the values will become same. And they are not asking you to make all the values as same, right? What they're asking is if you want to do this, then what operation, I mean, and the operation you can is allowed is that you can increment all the values, n minus 1 values by 1 plus 1. So we actually vice versa that we'll do the vice versa of the same statement, and we are saying that we'll decrement all only one value by 1. So we are always taking finding the largest value and decrementing it by 1. Now what will be the time complexity? If I again write the same thing, again same algorithm, my algorithm will look like this. So what we are doing is first check if all the values are same or not. Check if all the values are same or not. If they are not same, then what do we need to do? If they are not same, then what do we need to do? We need to find the largest element. Find the largest element, correct? If you find the largest element, then in the next step, what we'll do? This will decrement the largest value of the largest element by 1. Decrement largest element by 1. Correct? And finally, what we are doing? Increment the number of steps. Correct? And we'll keep doing this. Repeat above steps. Repeat until all are equal. Correct? So this is like a while loop for us. This is like a while loop for us, which will write on the top, while 1. Correct. So again, what will be the time complexity of this? This will be equal to order of n. M represents what? Number of steps. Correct. And what will be the time complexity of this? Check if all the, so this will be again order of n. This will again be what? Order of n. This will be order of 1 because we just need to decrement one value. This will be order of 1, and this is a while loop, right? So overall complexity will become what? Order of m into order of n plus order of n. Because so this will become order of m into order of n, right? Because 2 can be ignored, 2 is a constant, so the complexity will become what? Again order of n square. Above here, what we are doing was these steps. This step was taking what? The while loop was taking. Sorry. This was taking order of number of steps, right? This was taking what? Order of n. This was taking order of n. This was also taking order of n. So the complexity was order of m into order of n plus order of n plus order of n, which is equal to what? 3 into order of m into order of n. We can ignore the constant. So again, the complexity was order of m into order of n, which is equal to order of n square. So the overall, I mean, although the number of operations you are performing are less in the second one, but the time complexity still remains same. It is order of m into n. There also it was order of m into n. So let's see how can we optimize it further. So here, if you observe this very carefully, then what we are trying to do, we are decrementing all the values. We are making all the values equal to 1, right? So what if we do this in order of n? If we find the smallest value, correct, in the array. Once you find the smallest value in the array, then you simply do what? You do subtract the number. So we have to change this 3. We'll have to make this 3 equal to 1, right? And this 5 equal to 1, right? That's what we are doing here as well. Correct? This 5 is becoming 1 and this 3 is becoming 1. That's not the case when we were incrementing the values, right? See here, when we had 2, 1, 3, this is not going to be 3 and this is not going to be 3 because we are taking n minus 1 steps, right? And we are incrementing n minus 1 number. So ultimately this might also get incremented. But here, because we are decrementing, what we have observed is that ultimately this only one value we are decrementing. So this will become equal to the smallest value. This will also become equal to smallest value, right? So what if we find the smallest value and what if we do? So answer would be equal to what? We say that the number of steps it will take to make 3 to 1 will be what? Will be equal to what? 3 minus 1, which is equal to 2. Similarly, number of steps it will take to make 5 to 1 will be what? 5 minus 1, which is equal to 4. And number of steps it will take to make 1 which will be equal to 0. So the total number of steps is equal to 6. So if we change this code and if we write the code like this, if we write the algorithm like this, where algorithm is what we're saying, find the smallest value in the array. We find the smallest value in the given array. Correct. Once you find the smallest value in the given array, what do you need to do in the next step? Once you find the smallest value in the given array, what do you need to do in the next step? You need to find sum of all the values, uh, sum of all the values, and this values will be equal to what? ARR of I minus smallest. So this will take what? This will take order of n steps. This will also take order of n steps. Let's try to write the code and let me know if you have any confusion after that. I'll take the questions after that. So let me share my screen. Just a minute. I can't share my screen. I'm not the host anymore. Just give me a second. Let me figure out what I want. Just give me a minute. Guys, looks like something went wrong. We'll try to resolve the issue, but meanwhile, we can try to write the code on the whiteboard itself. So let's try to write the code here itself. So what we have to do is, see, uh, let me see if this works. Okay. Or I actually write it down. So what I'm saying is, what you need to do, you need to write the code for this. So what we'll write is, let's say we have to return int, we have num steps, correct? And what we are getting it as parameter is int ARR of I. Sorry, ARR, int ARR is an array value. So int ARR and int n, correct? We're getting int ARR and int n. Now what do we need to do? We need to find the smallest element. So what we'll do, we'll say int smallest equal to what? We'll initialize it with what? ARR 0 right now. And what we'll do is we'll start a loop from for int I is equal to 0, I is less than what? I is less than, sorry, I equal to 1, I is less than what? N, and I'll write I plus plus. And what we'll do after that? because you have written this for loop, what will check? We'll check if in this for loop, we'll check if ARR of I is lesser than smallest. If that is the case, then what do we need to do? If that is the case, then we'll do smallest equal to what? Smallest equal to ARR of I. So we have initialized my smallest to ARR of I, and this for loop is over now. This for loop is completed. Now, once this for loop is completed, now what we need to do after that, we will get the smallest value, and that will be stored as a part of the smallest. So we know that what is the smallest value here. So once we know the smallest value, then after that, what do we need to do? We need to write another loop. So let me write it here after this. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to write another loop for int I is equal to 0. And I've also taken int num steps, let's say here. So we have number of steps as well. So let's say the num steps equal to, or let's call it as total steps instead. Total steps equal to 0. Right? So what we are doing is int I is equal to 0, I is less than n. I'll do I plus plus. And what I'll write here? I'll write total steps plus equal to what? Whatever is the current ARRI minus whatever is the smallest. If I do this, finally I'll get the number of steps, and then what I'll return? I'll return the total steps. If I return the total steps here, that would give me the complexity as order of n. By order of n, because see, this is taking what? Order of n steps. This is also taking order of n steps. So what it is, complexity will become what? Order of n plus order of n, which is equal to 2 into order of n. This 2 is constant. So ignore this 2. The ultimate complexity will become what? Equal to order of. So this is the optimal solution for the problem which we have just discussed. So do you have any questions or confusion here? Anyone of you? Anyone who has any questions or confusion here? Hmm? Yeah, you can unmute yourself and ask question, or you can put your question on the chat as well. I'll try to answer. Okay. So any questions, any doubts? Okay. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Shall we move on to the next question if this question is clear? Uh, yeah. Let me know if you have any doubt. I'll wait for like 30 seconds. If you have any doubts, then we can discuss that. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next question. So this is the code. This is the code. So there is some issue with the app. Like, fix it. Just give me 30 seconds or like a minute or two, and then we can resume.
Prabhakar, you might be talking on mute.
Oh, guys, I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned that we have already solved this question, and we have already seen the optimal solution for this particular problem. Uh, uh, and we have written that on the top. We can move on to the second question. So I hope there are no doubts in the first question which we have discussed. Okay. So let's move on to the second question. And in the second question, what do we need to do is, so it will fall under the category of medium to hard. Interviewer might not ask you to write the code. They might ask you to come up with the algorithm for this question because you have written the code for the previous question. And if the time permits, then you can write the code for both the questions. So what is given to us is there is a sorted array given to us. So here you will see that there is clearly mentioned that there is a sorted array which is containing n plus 1 numbers, in which n by 2 numbers are repeating twice, and there is one number which occurs only once. Find the number which appears only once. So let's take this example. So we have 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 5 5 6 6. So how will you solve this particular?
XOR it.
Yes. So I'm not sure if how many know this property. So there are again there are a bunch of ways to solve this particular problem. Let's move on to the doc and let's try to see how can we solve this problem. So let's go on to the dashboard, and so let's try to write down the question. So what is given to us is that there is a sorted array, right? And there is a sorted array given to us, and there are what is given n plus 1 numbers, out of which n by 2 numbers are appearing twice, correct? And there is only one number which is not repeating, not repeating. So we need to find that particular number. So example is this. So let's say the example is 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 5 5 and 6 6. So now we need to solve this problem. So the first thing comes into our mind is what you can simply do is, because it's a sorted array, if zeroth if the even index and odd index is same, that means that you check this and this, they are equal, so you move on to the next index. Then you check this and this, they're also equal. You check this and this is also equal. This number and this number is not equal, that means that there is problem with this particular number, and this is my answer. Correct? Let's say the example is this. Correct? Then you match this and this equal. You match this and this equal. You match this and this, and you match this. So what will be a very, very simple code for this question is like we start a for loop from int I is equal to 0. You are saying I is less than n, and then you do I is equal to I plus 2. Right? You keep on doing this, and what do you write here? You write if ARR of I double equals to ARR of I plus 1. Then what do you say? Then you write continue. Otherwise, what do you do? Else break, and on whatever index you will break, that will be your answer. So return index. So in return I. So you will break again. This should be outside int I. And this is my main method. This is the method. So let's name it. It's a method. Right? So we are returning the ith index. So in this case, what will happen? See, these are equal, so we'll continue. I will become this then. Then these are equal because AR of I equal to AR of I plus 1. We'll come on this. Then these are equal, and this is not equal to this, so answer is equal to this. So we'll return I. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Now there is another. So what is the time complexity of this? We are going actually iterating order of what, n by 2 times, because we are incrementing by 2, so order of n by 2. Now this 2 is constant, so ultimate complexity is order of n for this particular section. Now there is another property called XOR. Correct? So if let me explain you what is XOR. So we might have all of us have read about the gates in our school. So XOR is a type of operator in, and then what it helps you is it gives you it's a very simple concept. So XOR of two numbers, A XOR B, is equal to, if A is 0, B is 0, then A XOR B is equal to what? 0. If 1 XOR 0 I take, it is equal to what? The XOR is represented like this, and this is the XOR operator, and we represent the XOR operator with the help of this, right? So 1 XOR 0 is 1, 0 XOR 1 is 1, and 1 XOR 1 is also 0. So when the two values are equal, then it is the XOR is 0. Now, how to actually, how the XOR is calculated is if I take 2 XOR 2, correct? So what it does is that the 2 will be converted into its bits format. So in the binary format, so the way we represent 2 is 1 0. So if I do XOR of 1 0 with 1 0, then what we'll get is 1 0 1 0. If I take a XOR of this, so 0 XOR 0 is 0. 1 XOR 1 is also 0 because these two values are same. So this will become equal to 0. So the property of XOR is that if two values are equal, then their XOR is equal to 0. Then XOR is equal to 0. Correct. So if I take a XOR of two numbers, then it will be 0. And if I take a XOR of 0 with any other number, then it will be equal to that number. For example, let's say 4 is represented how? 4 is represented by 1 0 0. If I take a XOR of this with this, then what is 0 0? 0 0 is 0, 0 0 is 0, 1 0 is what? 1 0 is 1. So it is equal to what? 4. So XOR of the same number with 0 is equal to the same number. So if I do this, so what if I write, if I take the XOR of all these numbers with 0, then what will happen? 1 and 1 will be cancelled, 2 and 2 will be cancelled, 3 and 3 will be cancelled, 5 and 5 will be cancelled, 6 and 6 will be cancelled, only 4 will remain. And 0 XOR 4 will be equal to what? 4. So what? So the other algorithm which we have just understood is like, what do you do? Simply do for int I is equal to 0, I is less than n, I plus plus, and you initialize your XOR equal to with 0, and what you write? XOR equal to XOR of XOR equal to XOR XOR and XOR. Let's say this is num XOR, int XOR. Okay. So XOR, and this is a XOR operator, and of ARR of I. Correct. And you keep doing this, and finally, whatever is stored in the XOR will be your answer. So you return XOR in that case. So this will give me my answer. This is my main method. Okay. Or the method which I have to implement to find the unique number. Correct. So this is the answer for that particular solution. Now the complexity here is also order of n because we are iterating through the complete array, so the complexity will remain order of n. So can we further optimize this particular problem? Yes. So if you'll see here, there is, as a, at the starting of the discussion, I mentioned, if you remember, I mentioned somewhere that if there is a, if it is given to you, that then array is sorted, then the question might drill down to a binary search or binary binary tree or binary search tree question. Right. So here, if you will see, what is happening is, I'm not sure how many of you know binary search, but binary search, I mean, if you don't know binary search, then it will be a bit difficult for me to explain you the solution. But people who knows binary search, let's try to understand the question. Right. So 3, 3, and 4, and 5, 5, and 6, 6. Now, if I actually, what I do is, if I do a binary search, then what I'll do, I'll try to find the mid of these numbers, correct? So what is the mid of these numbers? So let's give the indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the mid. So what will be the mid? Mid will be what? 10 by 2. So we'll come on to this particular index. Because if I come on to this index, what I'm seeing is, I'll go onto the, I'll see that if the previous one is 3 or not. If the previous one is 3, and see if the total number, so if the total numbers are here, what, even, if there are even numbers here, and this is also the last index, right? If there is previous 3 mentioned here, and there are even numbers present, that means that what? That means that all the numbers are appearing twice, right? That means that all the numbers are appearing twice. See, there are how many numbers are present? 5 minus 0 plus 1, right? So there are 6 numbers present, correct? And there is a 3 also present before this 3, correct? So what we are saying is, we will always go to the corresponding, I mean, if we jump onto this 3, then we'll go to this 3, and we check how many numbers are. So there are even numbers, and there are even indexes as well, right? That means that all the values are appearing twice only, correct? That then only it is possible, correct? So that means that my number, that separate number, is present on the right side of my mid. So I'll call the binary search on the right side of my mid. Now again, put the same thing. What will be my mid? Here my mid will become what? 6 plus 10 by 2. So 10 plus 6 by 2, which will be equal to what? 16 by 2 equal to 8. So this is my mid, correct? Now see here, between 8 and 6, how many numbers are there? There are odd numbers present, correct? But what we are seeing is this 5 is appearing on the index, and there is 5 here present as well, right? So that means that if there are odd number present, then that means that, so, and this is the second 5, right? This is the second 5 because there can be only 2 5, right? So this is the second 5. This is the second 5, and there are odd number present between this index or this index. Which, what does this tell you? This tells you that there are, there is a number which is present on the left side of it. There is a separate number which is present on the left side of it. And what we do, we will call the binary search on this particular index now, because this and this are same, right? So it doesn't make sense to call the binary search from here. If I call a binary search here, only this number is remaining. So answer would be 4. Let's take another example. Let's take another example here. So let's say the number is something like this: 1 1 2 3 3 4 4 5 5 and 6 6. So if I'll give the indexes 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 and 10, I'll find the mid again. So mid will become what? 10 plus 2 by 10 plus 0 by 2, which is equal to what? 5. So I'll go to the fifth index. Now what I've said, I told you, right? Always go to the always go, if this is 4, right? Always go to the next 4. Correct? Even if your mid is this, always go to the next 4. So I go to this 4. So I consider this as my, because this is also 4, this is also 4, right? So I'll take always the second 4. Now this is 4. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking how many values are there between this and this. There are what? There are 6, 0 to 6. So there are 6 plus n 6 minus 0 plus 1. There are 7 values present, right? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. There are 7 values present, and this is my second 4, right? So if there will be even present, then there should be 8 values present, right? But there are, between this and this index, there are only 7 values present. That means that there exists a value which is appearing only once in this part, correct? So what we'll call the recursion from where? We'll call the recursion, sorry, not the recursion, the binary search in this remaining part, correct? Because this 4 4 are fine, right? So we'll call the binary search in this part. So 0 plus 4 by 2 will become what? 0 plus 4 by 2 will become equal to 2. 0 plus 4 by 2 will become 2. So this is second index. So I'm standing here, and is this the value which is up? I will check previous. Previous is not 2. The next is also not 2. That means that this is my this is answer. If next is present, then I'll go to the next 2. But there is no next 2. That's why this is my answer. Let's take one more example so that you'll understand the algorithm clearly. And so let's take 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4 and 5. Correct? So this is 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 and 8. Now what is mid? Mid is 8 plus 0 by 2, which is equal to 4. So I'll go to the fourth index, and I will jump onto what? Because my previous is not 3, my next is 3, so I'll go to the second 3. I will here. I'll check how many indexes are there. The index is 5 minus 0 by 2. 5 minus 0 plus 1. So there are even numbers present, and this is also even. So that means that there is all the values are appearing twice. So I need to go to the other half. So this is my other half. Again, this is 6th index, this is 8th index. So I'll do 6 plus 8 by 2, which is equal to what? 6 plus 8 by 2 is 14. So 7. So I'll go to the 7th index. So now this is the second 4. So I'll stay here only. How many values are present between this and this? Even values are present, right? So that means that this is also not a problem. So I'll call the binary search on this remaining part. If I call the binary search, only this value is remaining, so this will become my answer. So I hope you understood the algorithm, right? What exactly we are trying to do. So because we are running short on time, if you have any confusion, I can take that. Otherwise, you can try to write the code for this one. It's a fairly easy code, right? If you know the binary search code, you should be able to come up with a solution. We just discussed the complete algorithm. So we always go to the next 3, or so the next element which is equal, and then we check if there exists the even numbers from 0 to, from the start to end or not. And if the values are even, and if the values are even, that means that all the values are present twice. If the values are not even, then it's present on the second half. So we call the binary search on the second half. So I hope you understood the algorithm. If there are any questions, I can take the questions. Otherwise, I have a bunch of other things to discuss when we move on to that. Okay, so looks like there are no further questions. So, I mean, I hope you got the high level idea of what exactly, how to actually solve a particular problem and how can you start with a brute force solution. So even if you come up with a brute force solution, right, and it's fine, and then interviewer might ask you to, optimize the same code. And here, what will be the complexity? So binary search complexity is log n. So the complexity will become equal to log n in this particular. So ultimate complexity is log n for this particular question. The solution for this is discussed in detail. I'll tell you where exactly it is discussed. So I'll move on to the next half section, which I wanted to discuss with you. So let me share my screen. So this is our website, and we have recently launched our website, Hackstack, and we have featured courses. There is a course which is on data structures and algorithm. The complete course is taken in Java. We have explained the solution in C++ as well. And what we are trying to do is, this is recently launched, and we have covered almost all the important algorithms, starting from your, arrays, then linked lists, stacks, queues. Then we have talked about binary tree, binary search tree. Then we have talked about heap. Then we have talked about graphs. We have talked about dynamic programming, strings, and we have actually taken some of the questions on the mixed data structure as well. So this is the course which we have launched recently. There is a system design course which I have talked about yesterday, and then there is an advanced data structure course. So this, I mean, if people who are very comfortable with the previous questions, they can actually take a look at the advanced data structure course, which is again designed by me. So all these three courses are actually taught by me. All the lectures are created by me, and these lectures are in very detailed. We have tried to discuss. This is recent. This course is recently launched, and it's in very detail. The content is there is around 60 hours of content in this course, and there is around 35 to 40 hours of content in this particular course. And for this particular, currently for these batches, we are giving a discount. So right now, if you see on the website, there is a 50% discount going on for these courses. But we are giving people who have joined the classes, for them we are giving discount 80% of the discount for these courses. So the course will cost you around somewhere around 4,000, between 4,000 to 4,500. So we are giving 80% discount, and the coupon code is HACKIT80. The coupon code is valid for next 1 week. You can actually go and subscribe these courses. There is one more thing I wanted to mention very clearly. So you won't be eligible to actually take the videos which are already there in these courses. Going forward, we'll have many more sessions. We'll be having a doubt clearing session twice in a month, and we'll be actually conducting other sessions by other people who are from various good colleges to share their interview experiences. So people who will be subscribing to our courses, those lectures from general lectures from the from people from various different universities will be free for you. We'll keep on adding the sessions. So sessions in this will be uploading more recordings. So those you can access, you will have access to all those recordings as well going forward. And in case if you have any doubts or questions, then we'll have bi-weekly we'll try to create a some kind of a sessions for you where you can you can come and ask the questions which you have in the doubts in the video lectures which you have already gone through. The other thing which I wanted to mention is that there might be sessions on these particular topics again going forward, and we'll be taking those sessions as a part of the Hackstack itself. Hackstack will be sponsoring that, so you can actually attend those courses as well going forward with the instructor, and there will be like multiple people coming and taking the courses. So you'll be, if you have subscribed to a particular course, so all the courses, all the lectures taken on that particular course going forward will be free for you. So you don't need to pay. Right now we are giving 80% because we have recently launched, and I can assure you that you will have a really good learning after you will subscribe to these courses. And if you have any questions, you can actually talk to me. This is my number. You can talk to Nikhil. You can go through our website. There are other courses as well. You can take a look at the other courses, but these are the major, the courses which you can actually take a look at. And this particular course So if you're a newbie, if you don't have like a lot of experience, we have started from basics. We have talked about basics of everything. There is around 60 hours of content in this particular course. You can go and take a look at this course. So there are a bunch of details covered. If you have any questions, you can actually talk to us and get back to us. There is a description mentioned here. You can take a look at that as well. And yeah, do subscribe to our courses and let us know your thoughts. Have you enjoyed the session or not? Let us know your experience for the today's session. And yeah, and as I mentioned that there is a coupon code. I've already shared it with all of you on the chat. So that is Hackett80, and you can actually come and take this courses on the website. So yeah, that's it. That's all for the day. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to take those questions. Otherwise, we'll end up the session for today. And as I mentioned, right, there will be many more classes going forward. We are planning to launch a couple of other courses as well for free. So you can actually, if you're subscribed to those courses, you can attend those classes for free as well. And we are planning to create a weekly, every week we'll be having some events, so you can take a look at our events, which are for free for now, but eventually we'll be start charging for those and these lectures, but people who will have taken our courses, the lectures will be free for them. So yes, that's it. That's most of it, and I'm happy to take if you have any questions or any specific. Okay. Looks like there are no questions. If there are. Yes, there is a third question on. Yeah, you can definitely take a look. So what we are trying to do is, because we are running short on time, I would give you a quick glance what exactly is the question about. So what you have to do is, there is a 2D grid given to you, and there are gold coins present on each of these cells in the grid, and there is a thief standing on the 0,0 position. A thief can either move in downward direction or rightward direction. Their aim is to collect the maximum number of gold coins. I'm not sharing a screen. So sorry. Just a second. Sharing screen now. Yeah. So there is a grid given to you. There are gold coins on the cell. There is a thief standing on the 0,0 position of the grid. A thief can either move in the downward direction or the rightward direction. The aim is to collect the maximum number of gold coins. You need to answer the maximum number of he can collect. So let's say the example is this: 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and they are standing on 0,0. So that means that they are standing on this particular point, and they can come onto this point. So the maximum number of gold coins. So if they follow this particular path, 1, 2, 2, 6, 1, then they'll get the maximum number of gold. So you can actually take this question as a homework or for your practice, and I'll take this question in the next session, which is scheduled on next week. But definitely discuss this question in that session. But for now, if you want, you can take this question as a homework. You can note down the examples which are displayed here, and yeah, we will definitely discuss this question. It's totally fine. If you want, I can mention the question on the chat and you can copy this. Okay, so that's it for the day. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining. Hope you enjoyed the session and you learned something out of our session. And please do take a look at our website. I can assure you that it will be a very positive experience, and we are actually, currently we are giving like a lot of discount on these courses. You won't get a similar discount on other websites. And it is a very detailed course, and definitely there will be a lot of yeah. Anything else? Anyone? Someone unmuted themselves, so if they have any questions, I'm happy to take. Okay, looks like there are no further questions. So I'll end the session for the day. Thank you. I'll just so there was this can be solved using BFS, but there is a better approach. You can actually do it in lesser complexity. So yeah, brute force BFS will work fine, Abhishek, but there can be a better solution. So maybe think about a better solution. Okay. You can optimize it. You can optimize your BFS to give you a better answer. Yeah. People who have joined later at a later point. Quick introduction about myself. I'm Prakhar Agrawal. I'm currently working as a software engineer 3 at Google. and I have around experience of 4 years, and I'm the one, I mean, working on this particular websites, and like, a lot of courses are featured by me, so you can go and take it. Thank you, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Prakash.
Thank you. Bye bye. Take care, and stay
Bye-bye.
safe, stay happy. Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Thank you.
I'll end the session.